EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to Birds 365, July 22nd. Johnny Mac, we are 1 day away from the Eagles reporting to camp, 2 days away until they officially grace the field for the first time. How you doing on this Monday, Johnny Mac? How was your weekend?
Yeah, worried about training camp. So, stress level up, but that's the way it should be this time of year.
Yeah, it's starting to pick up for sure. Feeling it on my end as well. Excited though. Excited to have the Eagles season back. Excited to, get some more stuff to talk about. Excited to see, how some of the camp storylines progress. And it's a great time of the year, especially for all of our viewers in the chat who are diehard Eagles fans. A lot of stuff going on in the world, John McMullen, but we will keep it on the Eagles. We will give our Eagles fans their fix of the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to welcome everybody in this morning. Devontae, Madness, Paul, Philly Birds, Miguel, James Carver, any other Jameses we have in here. We normally have a few Jameses in here. Suplex City, Jeff Martin, Auto Fanatic. Thank you guys all for being here this morning, Crawley. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show. Camp is here, everybody. We are ready to get into it. No doubt about it. Johnny Mac, let's start real quick with the I don't want to go there, but we're going to go there. A little drama from Diana Rossini. She starts off talking about, Sirianni's role in the collapse last year. Tell us your take on what Diana had to say about Nick Sirianni and how.
Oh boy, we need a 4-hour show. But my first thing, and by the way, Diana's great. So this is not a shot at Diana, but it's a shot at the sort of dynamic of the national people. One of the most interesting things about it was that Nick Sirianni had total control of the offense, which he's literally told people dozens of times.
He's been saying that for years.
But now, for whatever reason, fans now start to grab, Nick was in charge and not Brian Johnson. Nick has always been in charge. He doesn't run from it. He said consistently, if you listen to the show, it's his offense. So that's a pet peeve, number one. That's nothing to do with Diana. But the biggest part about Howie Roseman, it's wild, the reputation. I think Howie likes it, but it's wild, the reputation Howie has as far as being in people's heads. The allegation was that he hired Kellen Moore, and I don't know if that's me, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. First of all, everybody's on what the Fangio stuff is white noise. Everybody was on board with Fangio. They wanted him to be the defensive coordinator after Jonathan Gannon left. The timing didn't work out. People should know that by now. But so it really boils down to Kellen Moore. He didn't hire Kellen Moore. I don't know how to say this more plainly. Now, there's context to it in the fact that there's collaboration. Nick didn't want to give up his offense. Nobody believes that. I don't believe that. But he was, I've written about it numerous times. He's politically savvy enough to read the room. He knows if he Doug Peterson things and walked in and said, nope, I'm keeping Brian Johnson. I'm keeping my offense. He's probably out the door. At that point, you're forcing Jeffrey Lurie's hands. So, no, Nick didn't want to give up his offense. Yes, Nick realized he had to give up his offense, and then it's his decision. And for all the people that assume Howie Roseman is hiring coaches and doing this and doing that, there's so much contradiction here. It's like, what? Then why wasn't Nolan Smith playing last year? He's out there begging to play the younger players, but he didn't. Because that was up to the coaching staff. If he's this all-powerful GM, omnipresent, who does everything, why? Why are these contradictions? Nick Sirianni did not even report to Howie Roseman. He reported directly to Jeffrey Lurie. So This stuff is partially just Howie's reputation and the fact that people think he's this, and then the aspect of in general, he's on equal footing with Nick, but there's no question that he's closer to Jeffrey Lurie. So if you're being real, he's got more power because he's Jeffrey Lurie's most trusted advisor. So I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But Jeffrey specifically set it up this way for a reason. And, it's Howie's job to get the roster together, the 90-man roster, cut it down to 53 and hand that roster over to Nick Sirianni. Things change all the time in the NFL. They can change overnight. We'll get a better indication as reporters as we get down there this week if anything has changed dramatically from that aspect of it. But I wrote about this on SI, and everybody can go see it. And I ran it by multiple people at the Eagles and said, read this and you're not, and I don't like doing that. And it's not, I'm not looking for approval. Any journalist that's looking at never, ever, ever do that. I said, read this and tell me if you dispute any of it. Dispute any of it. I don't care how little it is. And nobody disputed anything. So, yeah. But people are going to believe what they want to believe.
People love a story, Johnny Mac. That's how it goes. I will take your word for it to listen to John McMullen, everybody. He is in the know. He knows what the hell he's talking about when it comes to this team. Anyway, John, let's get into a little bit of camp. We have Jeff Kerr coming up in 10 minutes. I don't want to go too deep on the Diana, Nick, Howie wormhole. The only problem from it I could see is if Howie was the guy who hired Kellen Moore. Maybe there's some power struggles between Nick and Kellen during the season. That could be something to watch out for. But if it's not how it went down, then it's just a story, as you mentioned. Let's get into camp, though. Training camp begins this week, Johnny Mac. I want to give our viewers the schedule real quick. Wednesday, so they report tomorrow. That's correct, right? The team reports tomorrow. They're not on field or anything, but they're reporting into the building tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Physicals, maybe some conditioning. They might be on the field doing some conditioning, but very little. They're not practicing.
So Wednesday, So Wednesday they start their practicing. Practice at 10 a.m. Wednesday. Practice at 10 a.m. on Thursday. Friday they have a walkthrough, and then Saturday practice at 10 a.m. So three practices at 10 a.m. Friday they have a little break. They have the walkthrough. So that means Wednesday and Thursday will probably have a different setup, different schedule on Birds 365, just so everybody's aware of that. We might push the show to after John returns from NovaCare. We might do it that way. We might do an hour in the morning, hour at night. We will figure exactly that out. John and I will coordinate on that one, and I'll let you guys know the definite on that tomorrow. So just keep in mind Wednesday, Thursday might not be an 8 to 10 a.m. show due to the Eagles practicing. But John, what are you looking for as you're heading down there, man? It's actually here now. It's no longer like, oh, what are you thinking about for a couple of weeks from now? You're going down there Wednesday. A lot to look at. D-line, O-line, some position battles, wide receiver 3, all the stuff we've talked about all summer long. Where's Johnny Mac's mind as he enters training camp in 2 days?
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty clear competitions. Not a lot of them because this is a solid team that doesn't have a ton of problems when compared to most of their peers. But wide receiver 3 is certainly an interesting battle. Right guard, they're going to give Tyler Steen, I think, every chance to win that job, but is he going to win it? Defensively, the cornerback situation opposite Darius Slay is very interesting to people. The more I think about that, the more I think it's got to be Quinyon Mitchell unless he completely flops in the summer, which I don't think he will, number one. And number two, I don't think anybody should be hoping for that. So for the Isaiah Rodgers people, even the Kaylee Ringo people who I firmly count myself in that camp, I wouldn't necessarily root head over heels for your favorite because they want Quinyon. He's the guy with the biggest ceiling. He's the guy with the biggest upside. So I think, speaking of Howie and his power, that's certainly what he would want. And we'll see how that shakes out. But Vic's going to do what Vic wants to do, which is something also Diana said, by the way. And that part is 100% correct. which there could be some loggerheads there, down the road, because coaches generally, not always, but generally are more comfortable with veteran players. It's just the way it is, because
Yeah, absolutely.
veterans tend to make fewer mistakes, and it's tough to live through the mistakes, and you got to be very disciplined to do it. So, and sometimes you got to take your medicine and get those startup costs out of the way, which we talk about all the time. So that's big. Linebackers, obviously, I think the biggest thing to watch on the defense, not only because of the competition, but because we don't even know where guys are playing.
Yeah.
Devin could be the middle linebacker. A lot of people I respect assume he's going to be the middle linebacker. I don't think that's a good sign for the Philadelphia Eagles if that happens. Not the most instinctive player in the world, not a lot of gap discipline. I think he'd be better suited on the weak side. Can Nacobe hold up at a middle linebacker? He's undersized. We know the injury history. That's a big question. Zach Bond, I think people have penciled him in a little bit, and I think he might turn into a hybrid player. I still wouldn't cross him off the edge as well. And then the younger guys, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren, how quickly can they get up to speed? So linebacker as a whole going to be very interesting, not only who wins the jobs, but where they're playing.
Yeah.
And I think people are putting weight. If you listen to Bobby King, the linebackers coach, even Christian Parker's got nothing to do with the linebackers, but he was talking, about his group, and spring is the spring. Bobby's the one who said pajamas. Christian said, well, let's wait to see if you get the pads on. There's a long way to go. So to make these grand summations about spring work with no pads on, especially at a physical position, I think it's a mistake. Maybe it's a little bit more meaningful at wide receiver, corner, the coverage aspect of it from the linebackers, but certainly not run support. So linebacker to me is the most interesting thing of all for the Eagles.
Yeah, and the thing that has made it more interesting for me is just, what is Devin White going to be? I mean, look, I'm not as excited about him as a lot of Eagle fans are, but there's a lot of people, and we've even had people on this show, we've had people I respect on this show who have said, Devin White's got a high upside. Devin White has a lot of potential. Devin White, if he can, find what he had when he came into the league, he's going to be a big upgrade for the Eagles. And then there's the other hand who's like, he's sucked for 4 years straight. He's probably not going to be that great. So I'm very interested to see, how Devin White looks in this offense. And Nacobe Dean, I don't know. I don't know about Nacobe Dean. I don't know where. I don't know what he's going to look like, or he's really only played John, 4 or 5 games in his 3 years now in the NFL. I mean, it hasn't been much.
He played 5 games last year. He played every game his rookie year, but he didn't play. He didn't play. Played a lot on special, right? Yeah, he played a lot on special teams. Now he's a core special teamer, and he stayed healthy throughout it. But on the defense, he played very little because T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White stayed healthy. The team was successful, so there was no reason to go off them. So I don't blame the Eagles because they were making a run to the Super Bowl. That's just what I was talking about with coaches and veteran players versus younger players.
Right.
Well, they were the best team in football for a large portion of that year. Why are you going to take players who helped get you there out of the lineup? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's a lot of give and take when it comes to that. But it was clear back in February when Howie was talking at the combine, he wished Nolan Smith got a little bit more time last year to see what he had. And then Nick came up 10 minutes later and said, hey, I'm trying to win games.
Yeah.
And it is difficult. And even more so this year. Nick's got to win games this year. By the way, our buddy Marcus Hayes, I should have mentioned that, came out with a column. That was, I love Marcus, but the contradictions and Mark is saying Jeffrey Lurie likes Nick Sirianni, wasn't going to fire Nick Sirianni, that type of thing. And then says loves his ability as an administrator. And then everybody defaults to, well, yeah, Howie hired the coordinators. Well, what the hell is Nick administrating then? I mean,
yeah, you gotta try and get Marcus on. I didn't see that column. It's behind the paywall for me. I'm not on the Inquirer yet, but yeah, we got to try and get Marcus.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get Marcus on. We have
last time we had Marcus on, he had a firecracker too, and he was talking about Howie Roseman, and he kind of took the contrarian take to the city of, Howie Roseman has some stuff to answer for, which was interesting at the time, and
well, he's got a lot of stuff to answer for now because evidently he's in control of the world. I'm surprised. I don't know. Howie might have been the one pulling the strings, getting Joe Biden out of the election. I mean, the way people have built it up in their mind, I mean, he's the all-powerful wizard behind the curtain. Yeah. Anyway, if you're a good administrator, well, then you're administrating, right? I don't know. Would make sense to me.
Training camp, everybody, just one day away, everybody, from the Philadelphia Eagles reporting to camp tomorrow, and then they'll start practice on Wednesday, Thursday. So Wednesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. practice for the Birds. Friday, they have a walkthrough, and then Saturday, back out for 10 a.m. On the practice. So it'll be good to see the Eagles getting out there. We'll have some video. I don't know however many minutes John will have available to take video, but we'll get as much of it as we can. We'll post it up on the channel. Make sure everybody stays tuned all week long. All the rest of the offseason, guys, we're going to be leading you right up into the season with the most in-depth coverage you will find on YouTube every single day with content. Let's get to our first commercial break. Jeff Kerr is back from vacation, baby. Jeff doesn't take many vacations, Johnny Mac, and last week he was not with us due to a vacation. So we will get Jeff Kerr up back here on Birds 365 to preview Eagles training camp week next on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. Training camp week is officially here. Joined now by Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, one of the best in the business. Joins us every Monday. Jeff, how was your vacation, man? Good to have you back on Birds 365.
Did a lot of walking the beach, did a lot of sitting on the beach, went to a lot of water parks, did a lot of golf. So, yeah, I did a lot for someone who went on vacation.
Nice, Jeff.
Good for you. Rested and ready to go, I assume, Jeff Kerr. Are you ready to handle these takes of why I insult an all-pro linebacker like Devin White? Why do I do that, Jeff? Why do I do that?
You know what, John? I think it's ingrained now because doing the Phillies all year, every time this team loses 2 in a row, the manager should be fired. And, this offense isn't good. And, you can put any stat up in these people's faces and they just dismiss them. It's people believe what they want to believe, and if they want to believe Devin White's they want to believe Devin White's an all-pro linebacker, go for it. But Ben Van Sumeren has just as much of an opportunity to start on this team as Devin White does.
Yeah, whoa. Yeah,
Wow.
Get on Jeff. Thanks for taking
That
the
is
heat.
a bold one there, Jeff Kerr.
But can I just say, no, I agree with Jeff. But it's a shot in the dark. But I'm like, hey, give Ben a shot. But I mentioned that last week on the show. Was I to those people? Look at the freaking contract. Do all pro linebackers sign for 1 year and $4 million with $3.5 million of that guaranteed, a $1 million signing bonus? I mean, come on, people. The training camp's not even here. I'm getting frustrated. And by the way, Devin White seems like a good dude. He's talking about Todd Bowles and how he was a father figure, how he respected himself, how he needed a change of scenery. I hope it works out for him. But you got to be realistic. These are not good signs. All pro linebackers aren't sitting out there and signing 1 year deals for $4 million.
You know what bothers me about the whole they criticize the Bucs for how they handled Devin White? I'm like, the Bucs they're a well-run organization in this league. They're very respected. Jason Light, it wasn't just Tom Brady why this team elevated themselves. He definitely helped, but someone had to get him there. And
plus a great defensive coach.
Well, exactly. Bruce Arians is still around that organization. Look, I believe everything I've heard from Tampa Bay on Devin White. That doesn't mean the guy can't change, because he can. And a lot of these people also said, hey, a change of scenery may be what this guy needs, but he thought he was worth $20, $25 million a year, and he wasn't. And he's got to get that out of his head, and we'll see.
Yeah, here's a question, though. Ready? And I'll just play contrarian. The Bucs did pick up his 5th-year option. Like, that was a couple years removed from the Super Bowl. Why do they do that? They paid him like $15 million plus, picking up the 5th-year option, and then they let him walk out the door the next year. They must have seen something that maybe he didn't live up to it, and he ultimately rode the bench at the end of the year last year. But is there something we are missing about the potential of the player that actually exists, that maybe he can pull it out in Philadelphia? Maybe Vic Fangio is the right guy to help him pull it out. He obviously possesses the athletic skill set. He went 5th overall in the draft as a linebacker, which is really unheard of in its own right. You don't see linebackers going top 5, let alone, you don't see many first-round linebackers. So, look, they did pick up the 5th-year option. Is there a chance Devin White can be I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 linebacker in the league, but can he be better than Zach Cunningham and Nick Morrow?
That's a very low bar there, Zander.
Well, that's our bar, though, Jeff. That is our bar right now.
It is the bar, but yeah. It's a low one. And look,
it's a low bar, but that's all I'm trying to beat, Jeff. I'm trying to be better than we were last year at that position. I think Devin White can at least be that.
I'm not saying Devin White isn't going to be good here. I'm just saying that I think we got to temper our expectations on the guy.
Yeah, I'm playing the odds. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
anything can happen. No, I mean, no one's going to question the guy's athleticism. I don't know how you go away and change scenery and all of a sudden instincts show up. I don't know how that works. I mean, if he was in a poor organization with a poor defense and a poor defensive coordinator, and that's why I bring up, I was surprised, to be honest, how Devin spoke about Todd Bowles. I assumed there would be some negative feelings. It was the exact opposite. Again, calling him a father figure, saying he still checks in on him, still worried about him. I mean, I don't. He's a great athlete. He was always a great athlete. That'll erode as you get a little bit older, but he's still a great athlete. Certainly better athlete than Zach Cunningham and Nick Morrow.
Michael Vick was a great athlete.
Yeah,
for a lot of years, he was not a good quarterback. But
drafting would be pretty easy if the best athletes were the best players all the time.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, and look, he's going to get every opportunity because they, quite frankly,
got nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I'm talking Ben Van Zoomer in here, I'm talking that because that's the depth at the position right now. We know nothing about Nacobe Dean. We know nothing about Devin White, how he's going to turn out. Zach Bond, they're putting at linebacker. Look, who else? Sean Bradley, Ben Van Zoomer. Is that our option?
Sean's not even back. So now it's Oren Burks. Throw him in
there.
Yeah,
Oren Burks. Yeah.
So it's probably going to be Devin White and Nacobe Dean as the starters. Then you have Zach Bond and Oren Burks, and then you have the two young guys, Ben and Jeremiah Trotter. In long term, next year, you probably, if you're talking about only linebackers on the team right now, you're crossing your fingers about Trotter and Ben, really.
Yeah, it's a very, I feel like we've been discussing this every year except one for about the last 22 years.
Well, we shouldn't have been discussing it with TJ. That's what blows my mind. The Eagles had really good linebacker play and nobody knew it.
Yeah, they found this. That's what bothers me about them letting him walk. You found him. You discovered this undrafted free agent who just got better and better every year. And by the way, is still a really good player. And you just let him walk right out the door. And I don't, even with the hometown stuff, you couldn't find a way to up the ante a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. And it wasn't even like it was that big of a bag that TJ Edwards got. It was right in the Eagles' price range, to be honest. Now, maybe not in the price range for linebacker, but it's not like the guy got a Patrick Queen contract. He got $6-7 million a year for a couple of years. It wasn't a crazy contract. But
John,
Jeff,
do you think it's just simple as they just don't value it?
Well, they definitely don't value it, and I've always said that I don't have a problem with that philosophy that it should be devalued to a certain extent. I just think Howie's taking it too far. I think he's taking it too far. Like, yeah, I'm not paying Tremaine Edwards. Tremaine Edmonds will take Chicago, but I'll pay TJ.
And that's where I think there's been some bad evaluation, because like you could even argue Nacobe Dean. Now it's not a bad contract, but they did spend a 3rd round pick on Nacobe Dean.
Yeah,
now,
and they tried. They tried with Davion Taylor a couple years ago as well. Yeah, so they've taken their hits, but mainly it's been a mishmash. Nigel Bradham they'll often bring up as because they won the Super Bowl. But even that was more meaningful than, at least they signed him to a 2-year deal, I believe.
Yeah, I remember it was a 5-year deal on paper, but it was really a 2-year deal, like you said.
Yeah. So very rarely do they go out. And this year, I mean, it's crazy to me. Look, There's something to winning outside the margins, and there's something to finding value. But they bought their linebackers. I said it last week at the Walmart clearance aisle.
Yeah.
Now, bottom line is, I like the clearance aisle as much as anybody else. Sometimes you find a nice little buy in there, but the vast majority of the time, it's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
It's like, the whole you're paying, you get what you pay for, honestly, and that's what they did. They didn't pursue what they needed to pursue. I'm not saying draft a linebacker in the first or second round because you had other needs, but free agency, you had an opportunity to allocate that cap money and just.
But here's where they make a mistake, because if you look at all the other good teams in the NFL, they generally have good linebackers. 49ers, Ravens, Chiefs, they generally have good linebackers, but they're not spending. Even the 49ers, who have the best duo in the NFL, Fred Warner was a 3rd-round pick. Drake Greenlaw was a 5th-round pick. They didn't invest first-round picks in them, but when they got good, they paid them, and that's my problem with TJ Edwards. That's my problem.
Yeah, and a lot of teams seem to do that. Or you could take the Baltimore Ravens approach. The Chicago Bears didn't want to pay a first-round pick on Roquan Smith. Was he a first? I can't remember if he was a first or not.
Oh, he's number 9 overall.
That's right. He was number 9 overall, and the Bears didn't want to pay him that money. And Ravens said,
yeah, and then
we'll pay him.
The ironic thing about that is they didn't want to pay Roquan, who's one of the best linebackers in football, and then they spent $100 million on off-ball linebackers. Yeah. Edmonds and TJ.
It made no sense when they decided to do that.
And I have to correct myself. Roquan was the number 8 overall pick. 8 overall pick out of Georgia in 2018. Butkus Award winner like Nacobe. He's worked out a little bit better. And you talk about top 10 picks at linebacker. Roquan's a 4-time All-Pro, deservedly.
And first class on and off the field, by the way. I've had opportunities to interview him plenty of times going down to Baltimore, and he'll answer any question you throw at him.
Jeff, let me ask you about Nacobe Dean. Where are you on Nacobe? I mean, look, I know Devin White is what he is. We've seen enough of Devin White to, make
evidently
evaluation to some extent. Well, no, I mean in his NFL career. Nacobe Dean, we've seen 5 games. We haven't seen much play from Nacobe Dean. He was a 3rd-round draft pick. Jeff, where are you on Nacobe Dean coming into the year?
I guess I'll go by with what. It's funny. When I was on vacation last week, I ran into someone that works for University of Georgia Athletics, and of all things, and talking Eagles because of all the Georgia kids on the Eagles. And I was like, "So what do you think of Nacobe Dean?" And he goes, "Love the kid. He's small." And I'm like, well, yeah, he is that. And he goes, I'm surprised he's been on the field as much as he has. So, and I said, well, he hasn't been on the field much. That was pretty much like the conversation, and it ended there. But look, I think the guy finds a way to the football when he plays. But I mean, this is make or break. Like, the guy did not play his rookie year. The Eagles. Now, I'm giving the Eagles credit here. They have openly admitted they probably should be playing younger players more. I mean, look.
Well, Howie has.
Yeah, Howie has. Yeah, has Nick. That's the question. But last year, he was off the field more than he was on because of his injury. So, look, he got hurt. What was it, Johnny? He got hurt the 2nd game, 3rd game?
Well, he got hurt twice, both foot injuries, different foot injuries. They weren't the same injury. And the second one was a Lisfranc injury, which required surgery. So that was the far more difficult.
That led to the whole Shaq Leonard pursuit because they needed somebody.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, he played in Georgia and he played his rookie season. As I pointed out to Zander, I sometimes I think these injury-prone labels get thrown out there too early. Sometimes you're just bad luck. Or look at Jordan Hicks. Got hurt. Everybody's like, boy, he's injury prone. He leaves the Eagles and he plays, I don't know, 6 straight years, not getting hurt. Sometimes it's just bad luck. And Nacobe played with Georgia. He played all 17 games plus the playoffs, so all 20 as a rookie, now mainly on special teams, but he was never hurt. Now he did partially tear his pec coming out. That kind of hurt his draft status. And then he had last season, which was virtually a washout. My concern with Nacobe is, so I'm not going to go down the injury-prone route just yet. I think everybody looks at him and said, he is small. I don't, I've been saying that for years, and people would push back. And I'm like, well, I see the guy pretty often. He's small for a linebacker.
When you stand next to him, John, it's very noticeable.
Well, that's a bad thing for me. But anyway, they list him at 230, 230. I mean, there's no way. And he's under 6 foot. It's a concern. But my biggest concern when he was out there for the 4 games that he did start, he wasn't that good. That's my bigger concern. And does that get better? And these Georgia will expand it out, I guess, Jeff, to the other Georgia guys. Because Jordan Davis, you mentioned the Georgia guys, Jalen Carter, they got to get better conditioning. Nolan Smith has got to play and do something.
That's one of my breakout candidates this year. I had to do that for CBS Sports today, and I mentioned Nolan Smith. He was one of those guys. We mentioned the Howie Roseman thing. Howie Roseman, he should have played. I watched that wild card game about 10, 11 days ago. I just wanted to watch some games last year. Wanted to see some of the younger guys, and I forgot how well Nolan Smith actually played in that game. The team did not play well, but Nolan Smith did.
Yeah, how we mentioned that. I was playing a little off-ball linebacker, too, because of their desperation at the time. But obviously, long-term, it's about edge rusher. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think Bryce Hupp is going to be a big deal. I'm very confident in Bryce Hupp.
I'm confident Josh Sweat's going to have a strong finish to the year because the numbers tell me last year was the outlier.
He played too much last year, Jeff. And that's where I'm worried. You lose Hassan Reddick. Brandon Graham's coming back, but he's 34 or 35 years old. How much is Josh Sweat going to have to play if Nolan can't be a significant contributor in the pass rush? And that's where I wonder about Sweat.
Well, that's my thing. They're going to have to play Nolan Smith. They really just can't play these guys on the edge as much as they can. That strategy did not work last year. So you got to see what you got in Nolan Smith, and if Zach Vaughn's got to move.
I've been saying it for a while. I think Brandon Graham might play more than people think because there's no more, he's made it very clear he's not coming back, so he can empty the tank. And he still plays at a high level. I think the Eagles were very cognizant of getting him to 15 years because he wanted to get to 15 years. They had him on a pitch count. They don't need the pitch count anymore. This is it.
One thing I've always kind of enjoyed with sports, and look, I've watched, even the niche sports people don't get into, like racing and stuff like that. A lot of these guys, when they announce it's going to be their last year, they usually turn their game up a notch because they know it's going to be their last year. And it's like you said, John, they don't care if the tank's empty. They're going. Like, would you be shocked at all Brandon Graham at 7-8 sacks this year?
No, he's very effective. But I'd be shocked because he's not a finisher. That's the one thing about Brandon. I think if Brandon was a finisher, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. He'd be on the way to the Hall of Fame. He's that good. But the reality is, because he's never been a big sack guy, that people don't look at him that way. I know I brought it up a couple weeks ago on the show, Jeff. If you got some time, take a look at his PFF grades over the year. It's freaking crazy.
Oh yeah. I remember when this is before he was picked to an all-pro team or picked to this and picked to that. This is actually for the Super Bowl run. I remember PFF ranked Brandon Graham like second best defensive end in the NFL, and everybody started flipping out. They're like, "Oh, how can you do that? He was a sack play. He has to do this." I'm like, but his pressure rates are off the charts. His pressure percentage is off the charts. And Yeah, he's going to be that guy. Like, he's not going to Hall of Fame, but a lot of people are going to say that was a damn good football player for a lot
Well,
of
the
years.
coaches know it. I always
Yeah.
joked when coaches' conference calls were mandated, and they were talking about the Eagles' defense. All they talked about was blocking Fletcher and Brandon. That's it. It was 91-55, 91-55. Here's the number since 2012. I'll do it again for you, Jeff. Number 2 of 92, the season you were talking about. 19th of 88, so he's top 20. 6th of 99, top 10. 10 of 108, top 10. Number 2 again of 111. Maybe you were talking about that year. That was 2016.
Yeah, that was the year I was talking about. Yeah.
5 of 108 in 2017, the Super Bowl season. 2018, 7 of 104. 2019, 15 of 104. 2020, 10 of 110. 2021, he got hurt. That was the Achilles year. 2022, coming off the Achilles, number 5 of 119. And then in 2023, last season, 15 of 112. Yet I can't convince people that this guy is freaking unbelievable and has been unbelievable. And they all want to think Devin White is some kind of phenomenal player. It drives me insane.
You know how long Brandon Graham's been around? He is the last remaining Eagles player to have a training camp at Lehigh.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's played more games in Eagles history than anybody else. He will break. He tied Chuck Bednarik with 14 seasons. He will beat that. He's yeah. I mean, he's Mr. Eagle at this point.
He will get 200. I gotta look up who has played with one team the longest and not played with anybody else in NFL history. There's obviously been, some candidates in there, but Graham's got to be up there.
People in the industry, people in the NFL, coaches, executives, they know how good Brandon Graham has been. He is unbelievably underrated when it comes to fans, even media. And it all boils down to sack numbers. That's what it is. Because he's not a finisher, which, I've always admitted. He's got short arms. He's short himself. And that's a trait, and that's a valuable trait. I'm not saying it isn't, but this is a really, really good player.
I remember I just remember one of my stories with Brandon Graham last year from the locker room. It was after a practice one time. It was the week he was going to, I think it was either tie or passing the mark for most games played. It was tied. And we started talking back. I don't know how it came up, but it was after the interview was over. We were just talking about, the days when he wore 54 and days at Lehigh. And he noticed I was wearing my Penn State hat. And he goes, I ever tell you the story about how Joe came to my house and recruited me? And I'm like, I heard you turned them down, I said. But he said, oh, no. He said, I committed there. And I'm like, wait, what? I didn't know this. And he said, go look it up. And I looked it up on my phone, and he did on his Rivals page. He did, and he was telling me the story of why he didn't, and a lot of that to his parents. But it was one of those stories and then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, you and I are the same age. I always forget that. We graduated high school in 06, and we graduated college in 10, and it was just one of those Brandon Graham's got a ton of football stories if you ever want to just kind of talk ball with him. And it's just amazing how long he's been around.
Yeah, and then that's part of the leadership. He sets the temperature for the organization. I think he's going to be more relevant than people think in his last season. And John,
do you think he says he's going to stick around, but do you think he coaches? You think he'll take the Kelsey role like what Kelsey's doing right now?
I think it'll be bigger than that. He's an ambassador for this friend. Hey, forget on the field for a second. Even this weekend, I was down at my girlfriend's place in Ocean City, and they have that big night in Venice or whatever it's called, and boats go by.
Yeah, he was
the first
there.
boat is Brandon Graham with the Eagles logo, and he's just up there chanting. He must have chanted EAGLES Eagles 1,000 times that night. Every house he went by gives him an Eagles chant, and he does every single one. He's just an ambassador for the organization. So after his career, I think he'll be a big role for the team, whatever that is, whether it's a coach, a player, an ambassador, whatever it is. I mean, I know why they brought him back. It's more than just about the football, to be honest with you guys.
This is how much he's like just liked by people around the NFL. It's last year, John. Remember after they beat the Cowboys, he's wearing the Cowboys hat with the, with the God, what's the stop sign around it, and like no one notices it till he leaves, and he's like pointing it out. Like, did anybody like just not see this? And he smiles, just takes pictures. And you were with me, John, when he did that. He's like, "Oh, take a picture."
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time. He's an unbelievable guy.
Cowboys fans weren't even mad at it. That was the best part. They're like, "Oh, it's Brandon Graham. That guy's always happy."
Earlier when he was, and I forget the year, it's probably one of his free agency years. He thought he was leaving.
Was that 13?
Yeah, might have been. Nah, it was a little later than that because I wasn't there at 13. So one of the free agency years, he thought he was leaving, and on cleanout day, he sat at the end of the NovaCare hallway from the locker room to where reporters walk out, and he stood and shook the hands, and depending on who you were, hugged you. Of every single reporter or, TV personality who covered him over the years to thank him. I mean, he's a guy who just gets it. And I was told by Les Bowen, who's there when he got here, he did the same thing when he got here. He introduced himself. He shook everybody's hand. Just a guy who gets it. And he's a heck of a football player on top of it. But the
John,
thing where he came,
the days where he just like remember when he would just block whoever on Twitter?
Oh yeah, he blocked everybody in the one year. Well, the whole defense blocked everybody. They were getting a lot of crap.
Yeah, they all did. I remember he rescinded the blocks. I told him I was never blocked by him, and he goes, "Oh, that must have been a mistake. I must have." I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, I was blocked for a while. Everybody was blocked, I think, for a while. But who cares?
Yeah. Oh no,
I'm still blocked
when he did it.
I'm still blocked by Chris Maragos. He's the nicest guy in the world. I have no idea why.
He probably doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
You know what famous Eagles player I'm blocked by?
Current player?
No, he's a former player. He hasn't played on this team for a while.
Nelson?
It's not Nelson. No, Nelson's given me the cold shoulder before. It's not him. He was a lot more productive than Nelson.
Jalen? Oh, Jalen. Jalen Rager blocks everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm blocked by him, but Darren Sproles.
Oh, ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Is that Wentz related?
Kind of is, yeah.
Makes sense. Jeff, let's go to the back of the defense real quick. We talked a lot about the front. How you make it? What are you making of the cornerback position? It's obviously been one that's been highly talked about. They got the two new rookies coming in, to play at that position. You got Keely Ringo, you got Slay. How do you see that position breaking out as we go into camp? Who starts opposite Darius Slay come week 1?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Who's going to play the best during camp? And that's my cop out. But I think Keely Ringo has an excellent opportunity to take that job. He's one of my breakout guys. So I think Eli Ricks is he's going to be in the mix, but he's a dark horse. I'm curious to see how Isaiah Rodgers pans out. I think Quinyon Mitchell may get an opportunity, but I think the best scenario for them right now is Keely Ringo, because I don't know if James Bradbury is going to be on this team or not. I'm going to assume not, because this game of chicken's getting old quick. So I'll go Ringo. I think that's the guy who actually has the game film to prove that he could do this at this level. Isaiah Rodgers is too, but not with the Eagles. And I know it's a different defensive coordinator, but it's kind of the same scheme, the same philosophy. It just seems like Ringo has a good head on his shoulders, and I feel like if he gets that opportunity, he's going to seize it.
I'm on the Quinyon train because that's who they want to start. So why not get it over with? Why not be like Kansas City a couple years ago? And not to say there's not going to be some issues and some hiccups, but if you do it early, maybe he's up to speed by the second half of the season, and you really got something. That's the way I'd go about it.
Yeah, if you think he's that impactful of a player, then yeah, I would agree with you, John. I think that's the guy they go with. I think Ringo's on this team no matter what.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He's
Fourth round pick. So, John, here's my question for you: who doesn't make the cut outside James Bradbury?
That's a good question.
Boy, they have tough numbers game. You know, Josh Jobe, I think they want to keep because he's probably their best special teams player. Eli's going to have a difficult time from a number standpoint. Boy, they have so many corners. I think, but those are the two known corners that have like Tyler Hall. I don't know if people know who Tyler is yet, but
he might win that slot job.
I mean, he might win it, and he also might not be on the 53. I mean, they have so many. The guys are going to be there are Slay, Mitchell, DeJean, and Ringo. Those are. Am I missing somebody? Those are the 400% guys. Even Avante, I put him at like 90+%. But I mean, there's a path for Avante Maddox not to be on this team.
If Cooper DeJean,
because there's so much depth.
I think Cooper's going to be a slot quarterback. I think that's who they.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
and if he's the starter, now then I think Avante's still here because he's going to be the backup safety as well.
Yeah, that's where I think Avante is going to get in. If they don't go heavy at safety, which they'll probably go 3, I don't see them moving on from Avante.
Yeah, and that's why I said, but I can't go 100%. The only ones I can go 100% are Slay, the rookies, Mitchell and DeJean, and Ringo. Those are 100%ers. Rogers is 100% making the team. He's the guy who missed. He's going to make the team. He's 100%. Those are the 100%ers. Everybody else, Avante, and you can do the numbers. Avante's number 6 at that point. He's 90+%. And you're probably going to be able to keep 7 because you're going to go heavy at corner, light at safety, as Zander said. Then it becomes Josh Jobe versus Eli Ricks versus Tyler Hall if you want another slot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't even talk about poor Zach McPherson anymore. He's got no shot.
He went from potentially starting in the slot to getting injured, and goodbye.
Yeah, tough industry.
The other thing I'm thinking about too with the young corners in this room is, I know we say it's all going to be Vic Fangio and Howie doesn't have a say, but I wonder if they learned something from Nolan Smith. Like, we're coming into year 2 of Nolan Smith and we have no clue because Howie said it. I wish he played a little bit more. I wonder if they're feeling like we got to get these young guys out there, rip that Band-Aid off, get them some reps, and then they're going to be better positioned to play.
How do you sell that to Nick Sirianni? He's got to win games.
But he's the boss. That's how you sell it.
He's not the boss.
I know, but in a way, he can make that decision, John. Don't agree with that?
By the way, John, when I was on vacation last week,
why didn't he make it last year? Yeah. If he could make it, why didn't he make it last year?
Because no one stunk.
Did he stink, or was he an edge rusher that was a rookie?
Yeah, let that. So,
but the point is, people want to see these players until they see these players. The coaches are trying to win games. That's one of my concerns. And I'll bring up Bradbury. As long as he's here, you can't say, if you're going to give Vic Fangio access to James Bradbury, I think it's a stinking mistake from the standpoint of, as Diana Rossini said, Vic's going to do what Vic wants to do. And I guarantee you, if James Bradbury shows up and they put him out there, he's better than these young guys, at least as certainly in Vic's mind, because he knows how to play. He's one of the savviest cornerbacks in the NFL.
He's a good dude.
Well, he's a great dude. But beyond that, I'm talking about Vic Fangio. This is one of those things where I push back on Howie kicking this can down the road. Ultimately, you can moneyball it at the end and say, well, I'm not going to give him the opportunity to play him, but you cut him. Obviously, they want to trade him. So he can handle it from that method. But if you have him in camp and Vic's taking reps away from young players because he likes James Bradbury, I don't think it's helpful. Which
Doesn't
is why
help
I think
any of those young guys.
why I think Howie should have moved on.
By the way, John, that's what irked me on vacation when Diana came out with her like Eagles stuff, because there was some informative stuff on there. But how many times do we got to be told that it was Nick Sirianni's offense last year, including from Nick?
100 times.
People believe what they want to believe, even when it's thrown at them in their face.
And you know, whoever you like, you don't have to like me. Most people don't. Jeff Kerr, you know, whoever. Zach Berman, we had on the show last week. Ask anybody. It's freaking Nick's freaking offense. It was Nick's offense when Shane was here. It's Nick's offense when Brian Johnson was here. And if Nick had his druthers, no, he'd like it to be his offense now. But he's politically savvy enough to realize that was not an option. But where Diana, since you brought up Diana, Diana does a great job. Phenomenal job.
One of the best.
Yeah. But she said Howie hired the coordinators. That's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true.
We were in the room, John. He did not hire the coordinators.
I don't know what to say at this point. I don't know. His reputation is, and sometimes I think Howie likes it because he's in people's heads. Boy, they got him doing everything, manipulating everything.
Do you think that's how they want it to be presented?
Maybe, but when I wrote about it on Sports Illustrated, I told Zander, I sent it to a bunch of people at the Eagles, multiple different people. And I said, do me a favor, read this, not to get approval. I want to make that very clear for young journalists. I said, if you dispute anything in here, tell me. And nobody did. He's not hiring the coordinators. Is he involved? When Nick doesn't have a guy in mind for a position, Howie's a big part of gathering candidates.
Which is part of his job.
Yeah. And then Nick makes the decision after he interviews people. Which is, for whatever reason, people don't want to believe. Bobby King went up and said it, and nobody was it. I believe the question was because Bobby didn't have any obvious connections with Vic Fangio. He's the new linebackers coach. And so he was asked, how'd you end up here? And he said, the head coach. Head coach called me. And then I think it was our buddy Dave Zingaro. I think he pressed and said, anybody else in New York? No, the head coach called. That's it. I don't know. And Bobby's, about as no nonsense as they come.
I mean, Shane's here. Shane was here because of Nick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what else do you got?
And Jonathan, there was some pushback. The Eagles were going to hire Jonathan Gannon, no matter who the head coach was. But from that standpoint, it's not like Nick wasn't on board with that because those two would work together in Indianapolis. It just happened to be Jonathan Gannon is very close to Josh McDaniels. There was some thought that they would hire Josh McDaniels, which luckily they did not. And he would have been the defensive coordinator under Josh McDaniels as well. And when they shipped it to Nick Sirianni, it wasn't like you have to hire Jonathan Gannon. He was probably closer to Nick than he was to Josh McDaniels. So it just happened to work out that way. But anyway, yeah. So for the most part, that's how the coaching is gone. If Nick doesn't have a guy in mind, Howie's one of the people that gathers candidates. Kevin Petullo's one of those as well.
You're still here.
Yeah. And the more stuff is interesting because obviously Nick didn't want to give up his offense, but he had to. But he was he recognized that. He didn't put Jeffrey Lurie in a position to force him to do that, which I think was the best way out of it from his perspective.
It was the anti-Doug approach, but Doug had more leverage in, hey, I won you a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Evidently, he didn't have more leverage.
Yeah. And it's funny how Doug's perceived in Jacksonville because they had a collapse last year compared to how Nick's perceived here by fans, by media. In Jacksonville, they're like, well, Doug didn't really have a good team last year, and they came back and bit him. And they're more worried about the quarterback being what they think the quarterback's going to be than what he actually is. That's how Doug's going to be determined in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on the clock. No doubt about it.
And he knows it.
Yeah. And Nick knows it. So that's one of the give and takes when you say, all right, if you're going to start training camp with James Bradbury and give that option to the coaches, that may create a scuttlebutt and everything.
John,
or maybe
if the Eagles go to the playoffs and lose their first game, is Nick out?
Yeah. Well, yes. First game, yes.
Yeah, first game. If they win one and then lose one, don't matter around.
Then it becomes more. Then it becomes more contextual. Yeah. How does it look? Did it get blown out? But yeah, one and done blowout like last year. Absolutely, 100%. One and done in a close game. Probably 60-40. He's gone, I would say.
I would not want to be in his shoes this year. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's a tough sled. Jeff, training camp is here, buddy, this week, man. They're reporting tomorrow, on the practice field Wednesday, Thursday, walkthrough Friday, back out there for Saturday practice. What are you watching? What's the number one or number two top things you're looking at as you enter camp this year? We just talked about a lot of them. What are the two that are sticking out? Yeah. What are the two that are sticking out the most to you, though, as we enter camp?
I mean, the secondary battles, I'm going to be entrenched in that all of camp. Just the outside corner, the slot corner, the rookies, Mitchell, DeJean, who's going to be that kind of breakout player? There always is one. Who's going to be the Paul Turner of this year's training camp?
It's going to be one. It's going to be one of the lengthy receivers. That's what it happens. It's going to be Jacob Harris or Shaq Davis, somebody like that.
What about Johnny Wilson?
Johnny. I forgot about Johnny. It's probably going to be Johnny because he's a rookie.
Yeah, there's another name that we know him by John McMullen, and it's not Johnny Wilson.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure one of us will screw that up at some point in camp this year.
Well, no, that's Ed's job.
That is Ed's job. And Ed, if you're listening,
Johnny Walker Blue having a Biden senior moment, which we all have occasionally.
Does Ed have the edit button on Twitter? Because if he does, that'd be even funnier.
Yeah, I don't think so. I refuse to pay for Twitter, so they took my blue thing away. Whatever.
No blue check mark is the new blue check mark.
Yeah, that's what I had that up for many years, but I gave it up. But yeah, they took it away from me, Jeff. I was sitting in the NovaCare Complex auditorium.
Johnny Mac for $8. Bigger reach for $8 might be worth the investment.
I refuse to.
Johnny Mac.
This is how it works in my world. I said I am not getting it unless a certain company pays for it. And I make a profit now. So.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with, but I'm not.
Jacob will have to pick up Johnny Mac's Twitter premium tab as we enter the season here, so Johnny Mac can get the highly coveted blue check.
I'll be like, Johnny Mac sold himself out.
No. Well, it used to be highly coveted. It's not highly coveted anymore. I had it before.
It's a different style. It's a different build. It's you're verifying who people are, I guess. And I don't know. It's different. But everybody, if you see a blue check mark appear on John McMullen's Twitter, you'll know it wasn't Johnny Mac.
It's not for me. I'll tell you that.
It might have something to do with a certain host on this show whose name begins with a K.
Exactly. That's exactly where it would come from.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know why why I went down that route. But you're talking, the receivers are interesting because I think we'll end it there with you. We keep you long, but that's because we
that's
like
all right.
talking to you, Jeff. At Jeff, plus you had vacation, so you're ready. Jeff at Jeff Kerr CBS. Read him at CBS Sports. Does a tremendous job covering the Eagles. You know, wide receiver is the most probably topsy-turvy position. You're phenomenal at the top of the depth chart, and then it drops off a cliff from AJ and Devontae. Look, I'd rather have AJ and Devontae and have what the Eagles have than be one of these other teams. But I think it would be remiss to say the depth does not look good on paper. And one of the problems I have, Jeff, is how he's kind of pigeonholed himself a little bit for the 53 because, they don't want to cut draft picks. And that means you got to keep Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson on the roster. And all of a sudden, you're going to keep 6 players at one of your worst positions for 2 day 3 picks. I don't like that. Maybe it changes because the NFL keeps liberalizing roster rules and it's a little bit easier. Maybe you risk getting one of those 2 guys through waivers and puts them on the practice squad. But I don't think he's going to do that. And that means he's going to keep 6 receivers and only 2 of them can probably help the Eagles meaningfully this season. That's how I kind of look at it. Unless John Ross turns into something.
Yeah, which he could. I mean, he did have a good mini camp, but I'm assuming Paris Campbell's going to be on this team. A nice
Aaron Schatz did not like Paris Campbell.
No, he didn't.
He did not.
Football Outsiders. Yeah. He was on the show. Yeah.
But there's another. We really don't know what Anaya Smith is because he was hurt or coming back from injury most of mini camp. So we got to see.
I know he turned into Shelton Gibson. Couldn't catch the football.
He couldn't catch a punt either.
No, couldn't catch a punt.
I remember he dropped the punt, and I kind of made the joke. It was a little loud, but I said, well, I think Britton's job is safe.
Yeah, he had the early case of the yips, which isn't great for a rookie.
No.
I mean, he's a 5th-round pick.
Hopefully he settles down. I'm sure he'll be fine from a catching standpoint, but, it's really a lot to ask these guys to contribute right away.
I think Johnny Wilson, again, a lot of this is going to come down to special teams too, but I think Johnny Wilson can find a way on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the
roster?
Don't you think that's kind of what they're trying to do with one of these 2 guys, Johnny or Anaya? I mean, look at Quez. Remember they drafted John Hightower and Quez in the 5th and 6th round, and then Quez was your wide receiver 3 until his contract ran out. It seems like they're kind of trying to fill that position, maybe with an Anais or with.
Yeah, but here's my problem because, and as you mentioned, John Hightower was on this team for.
Yeah, remember that touchdown he had on the out.
Went right through his hands. He would get.
No, I remember the one he called. I think it was from Wentz, and he cut the ball and cut it to the outside, and then he ran.
Yeah,
I remember
he could run.
The Pittsburgh game, the Giants. I'm trying to remember John Hightower's lone highlight in the NFL.
I think it was the one I'm talking about where I forget.
No, I know it's the one you're. I just remember who.
I remember the play went right through his hands, just right through his hands in the end zone. Was that Washington? I forget the game.
Is that Washington?
Might have been. I mean, he was open, he was behind people, and it just went poof, right. It gave me Troy Williamson, for people who remember Troy Williamson.
Hey, the Vikings basically traded Randy Moss for Troy Williamson.
Yeah. Don't get me started with that one. Hey, we got a guy who can run a 4.3. Let's get another guy who can run a 4.3. I'm sure they'll be exactly the same. That's high level.
Who was the linebacker in that trade, John? Wasn't there a linebacker that came back?
Linebacker.
Was it Napoleon Harris?
Yeah, they had Napoleon for a while. It could have been. I forget the trade.
I just remember them trading Randy. And then
they
Randy
traded him to the Raiders, yeah.
And then I remember the Raiders played the Patriots on Monday Night Football's Randy's first game, and he just took a slant to the house. I'm like, well, Randy's still Randy. And then he
got sick of loss. But then he went to obviously New England and had the I don't know how many touchdowns he had. That
23.
was 23. That was the best Patriots team, and they didn't win. They didn't win.
Funny how that works. It's very hard to win.
Last question, Jeff, real quick. How do you guys think, both of you, a question for both of you, Jeff, you can go ahead and go first. How do you think the Eagles handle the preseason this year? Do you think they play more of the young guys? Do you think they have a different approach going in? How do you think they handle the preseason?
I think they will. I think they'll play a lot. I think Jalen plays in the preseason. Not much, but I think he plays. But and Nick mentioned this to both of us, John. Like, what's the goal here? Because they did go 8-0 in 2022 doing it his way, and they went 5-0 last year doing it his way. I do think they play a little more, so they're sharper. But again, the first preseason game's in Baltimore. Maybe the second preseason game we see a little bit more of the first team.
Well, well, the New England game, they have the joint practice. Is that the second one?
Yeah, and that's in New England.
Yeah, so no, I would say no.
Yeah, yes, we won't see that. Yeah, for some reason I thought New England was third, and it's not.
Yeah, so they'll use the joint practice for the starters, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of starters.
It's a preseason schedule that honestly,
what about guys like Nolan Smith? Quinn Young.
Some guys, I mean, some guys got to play.
Yeah, they only have so many players. You can't bench everybody.
I'll tell you one person I do not want to see take a preseason snap, and that's number 26.
Well, and Jalen Hurts, I think, is the most key. See, the problem is with Jalen Hurts is, and everybody wants to see the starting quarterback, and if you play the starting quarterback, then you got to play the starting offensive line. You're not going to stick Jalen Hurts out there behind the Trevor Keegans of the world.
No, you're not.
No disrespect to Trevor Keegan.
No, but I mean, it is.
Can you
what
imagine
it is.
Jalen Hurts behind Matt Hennessy and Max Sharping?
Yeah, no, he's not going to be. So, I mean,
same with Saquon too. They're not going to put him out there with a bum offensive line.
Yeah, they're not going to put an offensive line. I mean, last thing Saquon needs. Saquon shouldn't touch the ball till the regular season. I mean, the clock, and I'm exaggerating. Obviously, he's going to practice, but
one of my favorite preseason moments, and I know a lot of Eagles fans like to put this on Twitter a lot. Remember the first preseason game against the Ravens in 2004 when T.O. was here and McNabb did the bomb? I never said get him out so fast in my life. I was at that game, and I'm like, get him out. I don't need to see it anymore. I got what I needed.
Well, I say that you don't need to see anybody in preseason football. Preseason football should be banned from the schedule and calendar, and it should go away. And people should just do joint practice.
Listen, it's still something. It's still in, and they have 2 new coordinators, and they're coming off a major collapse. So that's
what it is they're picking your pocket to the fans. I mean, they're charging regular season prices.
That part of it's a different story. I'm more talking about getting it right on the football field, coming off a tough end of your season last year.
I don't think it's very helpful at this point for getting it right on the football field.
Covering the whole league, what's so frustrating about the preseason? Breaking down preseason games. I'm like, oh my God, like they're running 5% of this scheme. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, the only thing that some people talk about the stage, and you get, the pads. The pads aren't on very much in practice anymore, so it's live. So that's helpful a little bit. And I think it's helpful to evaluate the back end of your roster. But overall, when it comes to the starters, I mean, and Nick is not the first coach to point out that when you have these joint practices, like if you're struggling in red zone and you want to work on your red zone game, you have to hope it comes up in the natural flow of the game. And practice, you can script it and say, all right, we gotta fix this in our red zone offense. And you can script these periods and do it and get together and joint practices and say, hey, they're practicing with the Patriots this year. You get together with them and say, we need a red zone period. The Patriots might say we need more third down work, and on and on and on. And it's just more valuable for the coaches to do it that way. But And then you're trying to hide players too, like Eli Ricks. I mean, the Eagles kept Eli Ricks because he had that interception in Baltimore. That's why they kept him on the roster, because they're afraid that somebody would pick him up on waivers. Otherwise, they would have waived him and got him on the practice squad. So,
You know what's amazing about that game, John? I can't even tell you anything else about that game.
all I can tell you about that game is the miserable traffic jam on I-95 near Delaware.
I just remember me, Ed, Martin, we were sitting there and
Couldn't get there.
we're like, "Where's Johnny Mac?"
Couldn't
Johnny
have
Mac is scarred from that game.
just stuck in.
There were at least 4 people that asked us where you were. We're like,
I got there
somewhere.
like 2 minutes. Then I couldn't find the parking lot. Yeah, it was not a good day.
Well, you should know where the parking lot is this year because you're going there twice.
I still won't know. I forget that stuff immediately.
I guess we're all going to have to go together this year.
Yeah. I'm counting on you to get me down there, Jeff. I'm going early to Delaware. Then I'm counting on you.
You're going early. By the way, training camp's not going to be the same this year without finding the hard scoop there. There, John. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah. It's not. He hasn't officially announced that yet, so I'm going to leave that to him. But
Yeah.
The hard angles are going to be more difficult to surface. But I'll persevere.
Yeah, I think we all will, but yeah, it's the games will not be the same. Let's just put it that way.
No, can concentrate more.
Jeff,
I got
thanks
double
for joining
dose
the
of
show.
it this year. I got it at the Phillies too. It was awesome.
This is inside baseball, but
Jeff
it'll
is
all
a
come to
Jeff is a
fruition.
versatile sports mind, no doubt about it. Jeff is well versed in all things, including bowling and tennis and women's basketball and everything. You can.
I've argued with you on Caitlin Clark, who by the way has been playing awesome since I said those comments.
Well,
Yeah, I
clearly-
mean she's turned the whole stinking WNBA around.
Yeah, I don't even think she's getting enough credit for it, to be honest. Look, I know there's a lot of great women that play in the league, but Caitlin Clark is a lightning rod. She brought a lot of people.
She had one of the greatest, 2 of the greatest comments on during the All-Star game Saturday. So her saying like, I just can't pass Sue Bird's record. I idolize her. That was one, and the other one was, oh, the WNBA All-Stars beat team. Do you think you guys have? She goes, am I wrong, or did the WNBA All-Stars beat Team USA 4 years ago? And they did. So
You're the only person that knows that. I have no idea if that's true. I can't fact check.
she was.
But my defense,
were.
I can't stand All-Star games. I can't stand
That
any
was
of
the
them.
most competitive All-Star game I've seen because it's Team USA tuning up for the Olympics, and you got Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese-Aguirre on the same team. Doing
I'm
Dr.
not.
Malone.
By the way, I'm not high on the U.S. Olympic team this year.
I'm not either. I wasn't high on the whole. I watched the first 2 games. I'm like, boy, Embiid looks out of place. I mean, when they were playing South Sudan.
They've been a country. I don't know. How old are they as a country?
They're not that old. I think Zander's older than them as a country.
Oh, by far. I think, I mean, that is a bad sign.
2011 South Sudan.
Yes. There we go. We got teenagers older than South Sudan.
All right. That is a bad sign.
That game, I'm watching that game.
Don't even get me started on a certain Philadelphia 76er on that team throwing LeBron James. I mean, he's right. LeBron isn't LeBron in his prime, but shut up, dude. Know your role.
Wait, name him, Johnny. I didn't see that. Who was it? Embiid?
That was Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
Oh God, I gotta go look that story
Yeah,
up.
and then it was funny because when South Sudan took the lead on Saturday, I'm like, all right, there's one play I'm doing right now. Everybody goes, who gets the ball last? I'm like, no, LeBron James gets the ball, drives down the lane, and we'll see what happens. And
he won the game. And by the way, if they pounded it inside to Joel Embiid, he would turn it over, and South Sudan would have beat Team USA.
Well, Joel Embiid wasn't even on the floor.
No, of course not, because they're not insane. Why would he be on the floor?
Anthony Davis is probably going to start over him. If Joel Embiid starts, it's because he's Joel Embiid and he's one of the top 5 players in basketball.
Look, the guy is tremendously gifted, but I've said it for a million times, and I'm sorry I'm off on a tangent. Eagles fans are going to get mad. You cannot run your offense through him in the final 5 minutes. He's got to be the Shaq. He's got to realize, look, there's too many issues. In the case of Shaq, it was free throws. In the case of Joel, it's turnovers. The ball stops.
That's why Paul George is here.
Yeah, he cannot run the offense can't go through him in the final 5 minutes of close games. Certainly in the playoffs. I don't give a shit about the regular season, but certainly in the playoffs. And until he realizes that, until the Sixers realize that, they're going nowhere.
Let him be the defensive presence that he is in the final 5 minutes, and he'll make more of an impact, I guarantee.
Exactly.
Let's get it back to the Eagles, Johnny Mac. Jeff Kerr, thanks for joining the show, man. Well-versed on everything. We appreciate it. Hope you had a great vacation and you're ready to rock as the season is upon us, Jeff Kerr. The Eagles report this week. Thanks for joining the show today, man. We appreciate it.
2 days from now, John McMullen and I will be getting our tans.
Yes.
Or our red in our
Get on Amazon today and order that sunblock.
I already got my banana boat SPF 50.
Yeah, he was down at the beach. So.
Yeah, I handle the sun a little bit better than you guys. You guys got that white skin. So
yeah, Irish.
We got those beautiful domes, or as Jody Mack calls it, follically challenged.
Yeah. Exactly. So get that sunblock, enjoy and enjoy the week, man. It's gonna be a fun ride. Definitely busy for you guys, but should be good stuff. Thanks, Jeff, for joining.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, bud.
That's Jeff Kerr joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Jeff Kerr, as always. I want to answer this real quick. James Carver, been a member for 1 month. He drops in. This is on the receivers, so let's see what he has to say. Regression to the mean. Paris was sat last year. Wilson's a drop machine.
Come on, James.
Historically. Anaya Smith has almost zero drop percentage throughout career.
I can only tell you what happens in minicamp. That's all I can tell you. The SEC, as good as it is, isn't the NFL. The guy didn't catch the football in minicamp. He dropped punts. He dropped 3 different punts. He was clearly nervous. He was working his way back in. He was clearly excited. It was clearly hyped up. I assume it's not going to be that bad because it can't be that bad. But it was that bad in minicamp. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And hopefully it was just he was excited. Remember, they held him back because they found the stress fracture. And then he finally got a chance to get on the field. And he dropped everything. Hopefully, it'll correct itself in training camp. But it happened. And my belief is not to lie to people. It happened. That's all I can tell you.
There you go, James Carver. Johnny Mack is not going to bullshit you, and he did not see. He saw a lot of drops in spring camp or in summer camp. So we'll see how it all looks this week as they report to training camp. I want to thank everybody for being here. Got a good crowd today. We appreciate you all being here. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show. I want to read really quickly the schedule for the week. So the Birds report tomorrow. They report tomorrow. There's nothing. They might do some on-field stuff, but there's nothing open to the media, so you won't see much of it if they do anything. And then Wednesday, practice 10 a.m. Thursday, practice 10 a.m. Friday, they have a walkthrough. And then Saturday, they are practicing at 10 a.m. again. They move everything up because they want to beat that sun. It's very hot right now, obviously going to, late July, going into August. So, moving everything up. So I will let you guys know on the Birds 365 schedule for those days. For Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'll let you guys know that tomorrow. Let's get to our commercial break. Johnny Mack and I, we got about 30 minutes left to go on the show today. We'll continue to dive into the upcoming camp, storylines, position battles, and more on Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365 Camp Week here as the Eagles report tomorrow, and they're on the practice field Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. So everything is ramping up, everybody. The season is nearly upon us. Just one day from reporting, and probably somewhere I got to get the countdown. I'll get it for you guys tomorrow. It's probably 40-something days until the Eagles are playing their first game, or 45 or maybe 50 days, right in that range. So pretty crazy stuff. The season is upon us. Johnny Mac, I want to talk about tight end. Let's talk about tight end a little bit, as we're preparing for camp here. Dallas Goedert's obviously your tight end one, and a good one at that, probably top 5, top 6, top 7 in the league. It's a big year for him, I would say. It's basically a contract year. I know he's got 2 years left on the deal, but 1 year left of guarantees. It's kind of a contract year for him. The tight end 2 position is something that's been talked about. CJ Uzama, Grant Calcaterra has been a name that's popped up a couple times this offseason. How do you view the tight end position as we go into camp this week?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Dallas and CJ pretty clear as 1, 2. And then you find the competition for that third spot. And for whatever reason, Nick Sirianni seems to like Grant Calcaterra.
He hasn't even gotten some talk from the coaches and the player and the team.
Yeah, and he keeps bringing him up without prompting, which is always a sign.
Yes, Nick does that strategically, kind of.
Yeah, I haven't seen much from Grant, to be honest, but I haven't seen much from Alberto either. And that's kind of, the give and take of, how he traded something for Alberto. But, he didn't trade much. I think that's over. He just traded draft positioning at the end of day 3. So he didn't give up much. But they brought him back, which is a little bit of a surprise. He got hurt at the end of minicamp. I'm sure he'll be fine. And then E.J. Jenkins was he was one of the standouts of the spring. Now, granted, he's playing on the third team, but he's 6'6", 245. He's the kind of Tyree Jackson type that's going to open eyes because he's really athletic. And Tyree Jackson never took that next step, had a lot of injuries, people remember Tyree, former quarterback in college. So I don't know if BJ Jenkins is ready yet, but he showed the most athleticism as a pass catcher. I will say that, of the bottom group. And I would hope that the Eagles give him some chances with the second team at least, and see if he can bring some of those plays he was making with the third team to the second team, and maybe he starts to get a little bit more relevant. But, if I'm doing the 53 today, it's probably going to be Dallas, CJ, and Grant Calcaterra would be the 3 tight ends.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That's probably where I would go too. There are some other guys. I think it was Elliott Shore Parks I read over the weekend. He did some previews. I read a bunch of dudes. I think it was Elliott though who said he has Calcaterra at number 2. He think he's taking a lot of factoring into what Nick's been talking about, and he said he hasn't seen it from Uzama, but we'll see how that position breaks out. It'll be interesting. I think the tight end's going to have a bigger role in this offense with Kellen Moore. That's just my speculation. I don't have anything to prove that, but I think the tight end's going to have a bigger role this year.
Yeah, I think that depends on the quarterback, and where we are with the quarterback's development. I think everything. Tight ends, everybody trying to pigeonhole the football to tight ends, running backs, anybody other than AJ and Devontae has to do with more about Jalen than about Dallas or Saquon. And by that, I mean, if Jalen gets more comfortable throwing it over the middle of the field, you're going to see more Dallas Goedert. If he gets more comfortable as a full field processor, you're going to see more Saquon Barkley. I don't think it's about pigeonholing. Oh, you got to throw to Saquon Barkley before this player. You got to throw to Dallas Goedert. I don't think that kind of stuff changes. I think it's about the evolution of Jalen Hurts more than the actual players, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense, but I'm anticipating that Kellen is, I don't think he's going to change Jalen Hurts completely, but I do think he's going to force Jalen to add some of those things to his game. You talked about a lot was made of last year with the middle of the field and all that stuff. I think Kellen's going to, I don't want to say it's sink or swim for Jalen, but I think Kellen's going to create an offense where Jalen has to use the middle of the field. I think he's going to be able to do it, but I do think he's going to have to do it. And I think in turn, that's going to mean Dallas Goedert name specifically is going to have a much bigger role in this team.
Yeah, I just think I think that's backwards. I think it's got to be you evolve the quarterback to where he's comfortable with that rather than
right. So
which if that happens, great. If it doesn't happen, you got to scale back. What you can't do is, fix a statistic to fix a statistic.
Yeah, right.
Because you can do that. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. Well, we can't be 32nd throwing the ball over the middle of the field. So throw it over the middle of the field.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right about that.
Yeah. Or we need to get the running backs more catches. So get the running backs more catches. Like, to me, that's backward thinking. That's got to be the evolution of the quarterback. And that's should be the biggest criticism of last year's coaching staff. They didn't get Jalen
it's only backward thinking if it's micro focused on whatever the said stat you're talking about is, going over the middle of the field, getting the running backs involved. If the idea is to make your offense more well-rounded and better, on the long-term timeline, or less predictable on the long-term timeline, however you want to word it, then I think it's fair. I think it makes sense to do that, even if it's struggle a little bit now or go through growing pains early in order for us to reach the desired destination. That to me would make sense. If you're right though, if you're talking about, I just want to get the ball to the middle of the field just because we didn't last year, then yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and that we're basically saying the same thing, just in a different way.
Exactly.
It's the evolution of the quarterback. It's not forcing the quarterback to do certain things.
But don't you think forcing him will create evolution in a way?
Well, forcing him in practice is fine, which I think they were doing some of that in minicamp, which is why things were a little bit ugly. And that's fine. You work on the things you need to work on, which is why, don't get hyper focused on the stats you put up Elliott. Don't get hyper focused on Elliott's stats in training camp. I mean, you're not necessarily trying to accomplish what a lot of people think they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to get better. And how do you get better? You generally work on the things that you aren't as good at.
Right.
And then you scale back to what you're good at when you're trying to win football games. So that, to me, we're essentially saying the same thing, just in a different way. I'm just that to me, there's a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, you got to get the ball to Dallas Goedert. You got to get the ball to Saquon Barkley." That shouldn't be how an offense works, whether it's Jalen Hurts or Tom Brady on, Patrick Mahomes on down. Yes, you have any progression. Generally, in the modern NFL, you're probably only going as deep as 3. There's certain quarterbacks that can go further. But, and the progression's mainly going to be AJ, Devontae. Some occasionally you're going to mix Dallas in. Occasionally you'll even mix. You might have a crappy linebacker on a given week, and you want to match up Saquon Barkley on a wheel route, and you try to take a shot, and he'll be first in the progression. That's going to happen on occasion. But the whole thought process of certain so's got to touch the football this amount of times is kind of flawed in the passing game. It's a little bit more relevant in the running game. If you say you want to hand it off to Saquon 15 times, that's a little bit more relevant. But in the passing game, even AJ, if somebody comes in with the Bill Belichick mode of this guy's not beating me today, you got to go in other directions. So all of that, but Jalen's got to get better at first of all, he's got to get more comfortable with the blitz, handling the blitz. Number one. That's number one. And then number two, I think he's got to get more comfortable laying up when teams are playing their safeties in the parking lot, would be number two. And, then full field reader. Is he ever going to be that?
Well,
I don't know.
And that's my next question, because I agree with you where you can't force these things. It has to be an evolution of the quarterback. Well, does any of that give you pause about the quarterback? If he can't get through his progressions far enough to get to those guys, Dallas Goedert, and I guess you can go Saquon Barkley or whoever the wide receiver 3 is, I mean, it's never going to be a part of it. Does any of that ability of Jalen Hurts give you pause about what he's going to be able to do or what his ceiling might be as a passer in the NFL?
Well, it depends I saw him win 29 of 32 games, so he can win at a level that's good enough.
Yeah, but the NFL, John, the NFL moves quick and they adjust. So that was the first couple years of Hurts' career. He's a different guy now physically, I would say. Not fully, but to some extent. He's not the guy he was his rookie year or his second year in the league, where he was very explosive and had limited number of hits. And the NFL has tape on him now, a lot of it. So they've adjusted their defenses to stop what he's been really good at, right?
Yeah. And that's where his evolution, and you do have to adjust to the adjustments, and that's where his evolution comes into it. That's why if I'm Kellen Moore, I am hyper-focused on getting this guy more comfortable with the blitz because they're not going to stop until he proves he can do it. That's the way the league works. They're not going to feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
They see something, they see a weakness, and they're going to exploit it. And until he proves that he can pick up a blitz and understand the football needs to go here on a hot route or there, and he keeps defaulting to bubble routes and things like that, people are going to be unhappy. So they got to get him more comfortable with the blitz. And that's about teaching. It's not about play calling. You've heard me say this so many times. It drives me nuts. Nobody calls a hot routes. Hot routes are adjustments on the field by the quarterback and receivers and offensive line. Adjustments on the field when they see the blitz is coming. Nobody calls a hot route. So you're like, oh, Brian Johnson's got to call a hot. Think about that. Think about that from a common sense standpoint. It's 3rd and 5 and Brian Johnson's calling a hot route. What does that even mean?
Right.
So I think there's a lack of understanding about that. And Jalen was just not comfortable handling the blitz, and he would default to those bubble screens way too often. He's got to get better at it. And until he does, they're not going to stop.
Is there an element to that, like, I don't know a good example to use in this moment, but there are certain things that you can teach it, but you can't really improve on it until you experience it. Now, he has experienced it, but if he's given new information, if he's taught different things from Kellen Moore, he's going to have to go through some of that to be able to learn it, right? I mean, that's where I'm like, you got to put him in positions to be able, Jalen, find the middle of the field, even when the blitz is coming, and doing that, getting reps and doing that will make him better at it, right?
Yeah, in theory. And the more you see it, the more comfortable you should get at it. Similar things. One, I say, look, I'm not a big fan of the Big Fangio scheme because too many people have been using it. And that means more offenses and more quarterbacks have gotten a good look at it. And they've adjusted and they've made some things that make it difficult to get off the field at sometimes. That's what happens. Teams get going back to Tony Dungy's cover 2, going back to Pete Carroll's cover 3. People get used to it. And then they start finding out ways to exploit it. And then there's a shift back in a different direction. Sort of what the NFL is. And that's, Jalen's got to shift back and make the adjustments and be more comfortable with it. And hopefully he can do it. But that was for people who wanted the coach's fire last year, that's where you should start teaching, not having him prepared to do that. But if you go back to, and I know Greg Cosell got a lot of crap for saying that Jalen Hurts isn't a full field processor. Well, he isn't. Again, do people want to be lied to? If you go all the way back to 2021 and you remember the start of Nick Sirianni's season, you can even go back and Nick will tell you they put too much on Jalen's plate. They were throwing the ball all over the place. They were losing football games, and they scaled things back and they took off. So what happened was they got too comfortable with we're good and we're just going to execute. And we're just going to outplay people. And people looked at the film and looked at all that tape you're talking about. And they said, all right, let's take this away. Let's see how he handles this. And he wasn't bad last season. Again, I point out 38 touchdowns generated. I point out all the time, if you take away the turnovers, it's probably a similar offense to 2022 from a number standpoint, at least. And people don't have as many problems. But he was never a full field processor. And you want to get him to that point eventually? Yeah, you want to get everybody to that point eventually.
Right.
Is that realistic? Probably not. But the Eagles have found out is they can win games in a certain fashion. And if the explosion returns and the +1 in the running game returns, they're probably going to win a lot of football games. But is he going to spread the ball around to 8 different receivers like certain quarterbacks do? Probably not. Does anyone care if they win football games? They shouldn't, I would think. But they seem, and maybe that's just the natural off season and the fantasy football like mentality of, there's only one football, but you want everybody to have it. Well, I want AJ to have 1,500 yards, and I want Devontae to have 1,200 yards, and I want Saquon to have 1,800 total yards, and I want Dallas Goedert to get near 1,000 yards. How does that work?
Yeah, there's only one football. John, let's dive in real quick on the hot route thing because we got Jalen All Sicko Dio Mad Day, whatever his name is. Thanks for being a member, brother. We appreciate your membership to the JAKIB Sports channel. He's asking, do all plays have hot routes? And I think where I want you to add context, but let me just, ask the question. I think people get confused or mixed up between hot route versus like an audible where you're changing the play at the line of scrimmage. Can you kind of explain what a hot route is, for a specific play or for a specific receiver? Just kind of walk us through what that is.
A hot route is basically a quarterback identifying a blitz at the line of scrimmage and adjusting things to that. Or in the case of the Eagles, it could be, a bunch of things have to happen. You have to slide protection one way, you have to alert the receiver you're killing the play, and you have to be on the same page with the receiver. A lot of times the most common one is you will throw to where the blitzer's coming from, throw right behind it,
right,
to the open area. That's probably the most obvious one to fans watching games. And the more comfortable you are, Tom Brady talked about this in the offseason. The more comfortable, the more continuity, the better it is. Generally, modern NFL offense, there aren't a lot of Tom Brady types any longer. And as people like him age out, Phillip Rivers, he mentioned Drew Brees, Peyton Manning have aged out. It's become more of, you have multiple options and built-in offenses. You'll hear a bunch of kill from quarterbacks if you're listening closely. What they're doing is killing. Most plays have a run option and a passing option. You might have the primary is you're going to run the football, but the quarterback gets up and sees they got a heavy box and they might kill it and go to the pass. So most offenses are built that way now, more of a college feel than a pro feel, traditional pro feel from 15, 20 years ago. And they're trying to take advantage of what these guys learned at the college level, which is probably a good thing. But then the best case scenario is you want to have Tom Brady and you want to be able to manipulate things at the line of scrimmage. But that's way easier said than done. Way easier.
So to summarize, though, the answer to the question, do all plays have hot routes? Technically, all plays have the option for the hot route as long as the quarterback identifies a blitz.
Yeah, that's an on-field adjustment.
Right.
It's coming from, it's starting with the quarterback who has to alert. And that's part of the reason why I prefer the quarterback handle protection and not the center. You have to be on the same page when it comes to protection.
It adds a layer of communication too.
Which, and most important, which you saw a couple times, the Eagles didn't have the right communication with the receivers.
It adds a layer where something could go wrong, whereas going right to the source.
And obviously the quarterback's got to be on the same page as the receiver. But that's an on-field adjustment for everybody, every team. Nobody calls a hot route. And that's why I said you have to get the quarterback. That's where the teaching comes into it. You have to get the quarterback comfortable with all these different situations so he can make those adjustments on the field.
So is a hot route more pertaining to one, like example? Let's just say you have a play. Let's just say for an example here, it's 4 verticals. You got 4 guys out wide, and they're all going deep.
Let me
just ask though, if you do a hot route, is it you're changing the route of one receiver based on the communication, based on identifying where the blitz is coming, or is it a change of the entire play, which to me is more of an audible, or are they the same thing? Am I conflating the two?
No, you're conflating two. A hot route is basically, again, a quarterback signaling to the receiver to adjust, change their predetermined routes.
Right. Okay. That's what
and if they see a potential blitz from the defense, and it's generally going to be a shorter route. It's generally going to be a slant right behind the blitzer. Could be a screen, bubble screen. That's a hot route. 4 verticals, you're probably calling 4 verticals. Can you make an adjustment, an audible at the line of scrimmage? Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that, Tom and Peyton and Drew and Philip would do more than what you see in the modern game, which is more of that college feel of, all right, you build an offense with 2 plays, and you can kill from one to another, generally rush the pass the rush. And then it keeps evolving from there. Hopefully in the NFL, if you have a quarterback that's around, should continue to evolve and continue to be able to handle more. But then you have coaches who don't want them to handle more, who are egomaniacs and want to be responsible.
Right.
And don't want them changing plays and don't want them adjusting things at the line of scrimmage. And those are pretty shitty coaches, in my opinion. But there's a lot of ego involved when it comes to coaches and play calling. And things like that.
Sure. Yeah, but that kind of answers where I was going. 4 verticals wasn't the right example, but let's just say AJ's out going deep, and then you identify the blitz is coming, and like you said, change it to a slant and go right behind the blitzers to the open area of the field.
Well, and there's a sandlot, sort of, for lack of a better term, version. If you think about the Seattle game we always bring up, that's sort of like sandlot football more than anything else. Yeah. I mean, in general, it's not an old school audible in the fact that, Jalen's basically signaling to AJ, all right, I think we got him, go deep, for a lack of a term, go deep to the old Buick down the end of the street. And, that's where freelancing and going off script, probably not the best thing to do in that type of situation, but yeah, there's a lot of things that come into it. But, that was one of the narratives. And Zander, that drives me crazy, that the Eagles don't have hot routes in their offense when you can go to a high school game and see a hot route.
Well, that's why I wanted you to clarify, and you did a good job. That's why I wanted you to clarify, because I do think it's one of those things that's misunderstood by some people on what it is. And I think Barbara hits the nail on the head here as we close out the conversation. It's about execution, right? I mean, if you execute the play properly, John, you say this more than anybody. If you execute the play properly, nobody gives a shit about whether it was a hot route or not. All they want to see is a successful play.
Well, but I say it all the time. People do not judge play calls. They judge play results. And sometimes you get a good play result with a bad play call. And sometimes you get a bad result with a good play call. And that's very counterintuitive to people. But, I always bring up Doug, because Doug explained it to me best. Sometimes you dial up the perfect play call at the perfect time, and you got them. And, if there's just time, you're gonna make a big play down the field, but the left guard misses a block, and everybody thinks, oh, that's a shitty play call. And there are other times when the defense gets you and Jalen will make a play or AJ will make a play, and they'll bail out the coach's ass. And they think, oh, that's a great play. That's a great play call. When the coach knows that wasn't great. But yeah, people judge play results. They do not judge play calls. And
So in
they
theory-
hate when I say that, but it's 100% true.
Oh, it's 100% true. No doubt about it. So in theory, though, John, we've talked about how the blitz was, people blitzed the Eagles a lot last year. The Eagles really struggled to find an answer for that blitz. Hot routes are going to be a big thing this year, or not specifically that, but the concept of Jalen Hurts being able to read, understand where the blitz is coming from or what the defense is doing on any given play, and being able to adjust and get your offense into the right play. It goes back to the Brady clip we've talked about all summer long, where the main job of the quarterback is to get your offense in the right play. And that's going to be something we have to watch Jalen Hurts this year, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody should be striving to get Tom Brady. Everybody. Again, easier said than done. But
Yeah, it's a
every
big ask,
NFL
right?
team should want somebody who can handle things at the line of scrimmage, or in the case of the Eagles, more often than not, shotgun or pistol. But you got to be able to adjust things on the field, or you're going to be left to the devices of good call versus bad call, of guessing right versus guessing wrong. And occasionally you're going to get bitten if the quarterback can't get you into the proper play for the proper defense. And the more times he can do that, the better off you're going to be. And again, that doesn't mean he might get you in the right play, and it still might be unsuccessful. As Barbara points out, you might have a lack of execution.
Right.
But the more times you do it,
Exactly.
you get in a good play, the more the odds are going to go up that you're going to have success.
Exactly. You're increasing your chances when you get your team in the right play, and increasing your chances will, in the long term, in theory, lead to more wins and better execution, as we talked about. I mean, if you're in the right play, your chance at executing the play properly increases, in theory, as I mentioned. But good show today, Johnny Mac. We're wrapping up. It went quick. Already 10 a.m. Sometimes the shows go so damn quick, especially when you have Kerr on, and he brought great insight for about an hour on the show. So good stuff today. We really are close now, Johnny Mac. The show has come to an end, and tomorrow the Eagles will be reporting, so we'll be doing our regular show tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. We'll be back with you tomorrow. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, John, they said they have a walkthrough. Is that the same time? Do you have to be down there for walkthrough? What does Friday look like for you?
No, no media access on Friday, so we'll be here at 8 to 10.
Got it. So Wednesday and Thursday are the 2 days this week where the schedule is a little bit loose. So we'll keep you guys updated so you know exactly when Birds 365 will air. Like I said, my promise to you is we will have 2 hours of Eagles content on Birds 365 for you every single day. Just the times may vary on those days due to the practice schedule. So stay tuned, everybody. I appreciate everybody being here today. A lot of good viewership, a lot of great comments, as always. We appreciate you all. Slagger, Ray, Barbara, Carol, Jalen, James, Jones, Callie, Baby, great, giving some great comments today. Slagger, all of our chat, James Carver. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. We will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365. All right, man.
All right, one more day, and we're there.
One more day, and Johnny Mac is back at NovaCare. So a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Stay tuned all week long, everybody. Thank you for being here. See you tomorrow on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.